Every morning, Maya walked the same path to her small office job at the printing shop. Her life was quiet, simple, and full of routine. She lived alone in a small rented apartment and liked peaceful things: morning tea, the sound of birds, and the smell of rain. Her favorite part of the day was the short walk through the park near her office. It was calm, filled with trees and flowers, and always gave her a sense of comfort before facing another long day at work. One cool morning, as the sun rose through the mist, she noticed an old man sitting alone on a bench near the lake. He was feeding the pigeons with small crumbs of bread. His hands shook slightly and his face looked tired, but his eyes were calm and full of warmth. Something about him caught Maya's attention. There was a quiet sadness in the way he looked at the birds, as if he was remembering someone he had lost long ago. Maya slowed her steps and watched him for a moment. The old man seemed fragile, yet there was something graceful about him. He wore a neat sweater and a cap, and beside him was a small walking stick and a brown leather box that he kept close to his side. Every time he reached into his pocket for more crumbs, he made sure the box stayed near him, touching it gently as if it was something precious. Maya wondered what was inside it. Maybe old letters or photos or memories he couldn't let go of. She smiled softly and continued walking. The next day she saw him again, sitting in the same spot. This time the wind was strong, and the pigeons were flying wildly around him. He was trying to stand, but his stick fell from his hand and rolled away. Without thinking, Maya hurried toward him. "Let me help you," she said kindly, picking up the stick and offering her arm. The old man smiled, his eyes shining with gratitude. "Thank you, my dear," he said, his voice gentle and weak. "You remind me of someone I once knew." Maya helped him cross the path and sat with him for a few minutes. He introduced himself as Mr. Dev. From that day onward, Maya began noticing him every morning. Sometimes he sat in silence. Sometimes he smiled and waved when he saw her. She started bringing an extra sandwich or a small box of food from home to share with him. He always accepted it with a quiet thank you, eating slowly and talking about the birds, the trees, and how the world had changed over the years. Maya enjoyed listening. His stories were old and simple, but there was emotion in every word. He told her about how people used to write letters instead of messages, how kindness used to mean more than money, and how the world felt smaller back then because hearts were closer. She laughed at his little jokes, and sometimes they just sat in silence, watching the leaves fall from the trees. As days turned into weeks, Maya realized she looked forward to meeting him. She even woke up earlier, so she could spend more time in the park before work. It became their quiet routine. But she noticed something strange. Whenever Maya asked about his family, his eyes turned away and his smile faded. He would say, "Our life takes people far apart sometimes," and change the subject. She didn't press him. She could tell the topic brought pain. Yet she couldn't help but wonder, where was his family? Why was he always alone? Why did he sit there every single morning, holding that small locked box like it was a part of his soul? Sometimes she saw him open the box slightly, only to close it again quickly, almost protectively. One morning, Maya decided to bring him some homemade soup. The day was cold and she thought it might warm him up. When she arrived, she found him coughing softly, his blanket slipping off his shoulders. She wrapped it around him and gave him the soup. "You shouldn't sit here when it's so cold," she said with worry. Mr. Dev smiled faintly. "I'm used to it, child. The cold doesn't bother me much anymore. But your kindness warms my heart." Maya smiled back, though his words made her heart ache. He looked so fragile, like the wind could carry him away at any moment. When he tried to stand, she helped him walk a few steps toward the lake. The birds followed him as if they knew him. He watched them and whispered, "They never forget where they're fed. That's loyalty." Then he looked at Maya and added softly, "People forget too easily, don't they?" She didn't know what to say. That night, Maya thought about him again and again. She couldn't understand why she felt so connected to this old stranger. It was as if she had known him forever. The way he spoke, the way he looked at her, there was something familiar in his eyes, something that reminded her of her late mother. Her mother used to tell her stories about her childhood and an old house by the lake where she lived before marriage, but she never spoke about her father. Whenever Maya asked, her mother would go quiet and say, "Some people are lost to time, my dear." For the first time, Maya wondered if there was something hidden in her own family story too. The next morning, When she reached the park, she found Mr. Dev smiling at her from the same bench. "Good morning, Maya," he greeted warmly. "I was hoping you'd come. I brought something for you." He handed her a small paper bag. Inside was a bunch of freshly picked flowers tied with a string. "For being kind to an old man," he said. Maya laughed, touched by the gesture. But as she bent to thank him, she noticed his eyes glistening with unshed tears. Before she could ask what was wrong, he whispered, "Don't ever stop being kind. Maya, the world needs more hearts like yours." She didn't understand why he said that so seriously, but she nodded. As the sun set that evening, Maya saw him one last time for the day. He was sitting quietly, holding that little brown box in his hands. The park was silent, the birds gone, the light fading. He seemed deep in thought. Maya stood for a moment watching him. She felt a strange chill, like something important was hidden behind his gentle smile, something he wasn't ready to share. She walked away, but the image of the old man with his mysterious box stayed in her mind. She had no idea that the secret inside that box would soon turn her whole world upside down. Days slowly turned into weeks, and Maya's visits to the park became a part of her life she couldn't imagine missing. Every morning, before the sun fully rose, she would pack an extra sandwich, a bottle of water, and sometimes a small box of sweets. She would smile to herself as she walked toward the bench, wondering what story Mr. Dev would tell her that day. The old man was always there, waiting patiently, his brown box beside him and his warm smile ready to greet her. "Ah, my little sunshine has arrived," he would say whenever he saw her. Maya laughed every time he called her that. It made her feel special, like she had a purpose, like her kindness actually meant something in someone's life. They talked about everything. Mr. Dev told her about his younger days when he worked as a teacher in a small village school. He described how children used to sit on the ground with slates in their hands, and how he loved teaching them to read and write. His voice would soften whenever he spoke of those days. Sometimes he'd close his eyes and smile as if reliving his memories. Maya listened carefully, imagining the young teacher standing under a big tree with children laughing around him. Those moments made her heart warm, but there were also moments when his mood suddenly changed. Some days his voice became distant, and his eyes turned away toward the lake. Maya noticed how he would clutch his little box tighter whenever something reminded him of the past. Once she gently asked, "Mr. Dev, what's in that box you always carry?" He smiled faintly and said, "Memories, my dear. Some are too heavy to let go." Then he patted her hand and added softly, "So maybe one day I'll tell you." Maya didn't ask again, though curiosity stayed in her heart like a quiet whisper. As they spent more time together, their bond grew stronger. Maya often read stories to him from her favorite book while he rested. In return, he taught her small life lessons through his stories, about patience, about forgiveness, about how sometimes love hides in unexpected places. "You know, Maya," he said one morning while feeding the pigeons, "people chase big dreams and forget small joys. But small joys are what keep us alive." His words always felt like they carried something deeper, something he had learned through pain. One evening, as Maya was about to leave, she noticed him shivering. His old sweater looked thin and worn. That night she couldn't sleep. The next day, she brought him a new woolen shawl she had bought with her week's savings. "This will keep you warm," she said shyly. Mr. Dev looked at her with moist eyes and said, "You have a heart of gold, child. No one has done something like this for me in years." Maya smiled, brushing it off, but deep down his words touched her soul. The park workers began to notice their friendship. Some smiled, others whispered, thinking maybe Maya was related to him. One of them even asked her, "Is he your grandfather?" Maya laughed and said, "No, he's just a friend." But inside she felt something stronger than friendship, a strange sense of connection, as if fate had tied them together for a reason. She couldn't explain it, but being around him gave her peace she hadn't felt in years. One day, when Maya came a bit later than usual, she found Mr. Dev staring at an old photograph in his hands. It was faded and slightly torn. When he saw her, he quickly hid it back inside the box. "Who was that in the picture?" Maya asked softly. He hesitated, then said, "Someone I lost a long time ago." She noticed his hands shaking slightly and she didn't want to make him sad, so she changed the topic. But she couldn't stop wondering who that person was, maybe his wife, maybe his daughter. Whoever it was, it clearly meant the world to him. As time went on, Maya realized Mr. Dev had no visitors. No family came to see him, no one called him. Once she asked if he had any children. His smile faded again and he said quietly, "I had one. But life separated us." Then he looked at the sky and whispered, "She was just about your age when I last saw her." The pain in his eyes made Maya's chest tighten. She wanted to comfort him, but she didn't know how. So she just sat beside him, holding his hand in silence. Sometimes silence speaks louder than words. One weekend it started raining heavily, and Maya couldn't go to the park. She worried about him the whole day. On the third day, when the rain stopped, she rushed there with an umbrella and found him sitting on the wet bench coughing softly. "Mr. Dev, you shouldn't be out here," she said, hurrying to cover him with her umbrella. He smiled weakly. "I knew you'd come, Maya, you always do." His words made her eyes sting. She helped him walk to a nearby tea stall, ordered hot tea for both and waited until he felt better. Before leaving, he said something that stayed in her mind. "You know, child, you have filled a gap in my life that no one else could." That night, as Maya walked home, her thoughts were full of him. She wondered what his life had been like, what stories were locked inside that little box, what memories he kept close to his heart. She also wondered why she cared so much. She barely knew him, and yet she felt responsible for him. Her friends teased her about spending time with an old man instead of going out on weekends, but she didn't care. She felt something special in their bond, something pure, something beyond explanation. But deep inside, Maya also sensed that Mr. Dev was hiding something. There was a quiet heaviness in his eyes whenever he looked at her, like he wanted to tell her something but couldn't. Every time she left, he would watch her walk away with that same look, half smile, half sadness. One evening, as she turned to wave goodbye, she saw him touching the small locked box again, whispering something under his breath. For the first time, she noticed his eyes were full of tears. He wiped them quickly before she could ask. That night, she couldn't sleep. Her heart felt heavy, though she didn't know why. Somewhere deep down, she had a strange feeling that the box, the photograph, and her presence in his life were somehow connected. And soon, that hidden connection would start to reveal itself in ways she could never imagine. One bright morning, the park was quieter than usual. The air was fresh after a night of rain, and sunlight danced over the wet leaves. Maya walked faster than normal. She was excited to see Mr. Dev. She had made his favorite breakfast, vegetable sandwiches with light butter, and carried it carefully in her lunchbox. As she approached the usual bench, she smiled out of habit, but her smile slowly faded. Mr. Dev was not alone today. A young man stood beside him, tall, well-dressed, wearing a black suit that didn't fit the peaceful park scene. His face was sharp, his voice loud and impatient. He held a few papers in his hand, waving them while speaking angrily. "You can't keep delaying this, Grandpa," he said. "You know what needs to be done. Just sign it and stop wasting time." Mr. Dev sat silently, staring at the ground, his little brown box resting tightly between his trembling hands. Maya froze a few feet away, unsure if she should interrupt. The young man's tone made her uneasy. She had never seen anyone speak to Mr. Dev that way. Gathering courage, she stepped forward and said softly, "Good morning, Mr. Dev." The young man turned sharply, his eyes narrowing as he looked at her. "Who are you?" he asked coldly. Maya hesitated. "I'm sure just a friend. I come here to talk to Mr. Dev sometimes," the man scoffed. "A friend, really? Grandpa doesn't need random people interfering in his personal matters." He turned back to Mr. Dev and said firmly, "I'll be back tomorrow. You better be ready to sign those papers." Without another word, he walked away, his polished shoes splashing small puddles as he disappeared down the path. Maya stood quietly, shocked by his rude behavior. Mr. Dev sighed deeply, his shoulders heavy with exhaustion. She sat beside him and asked softly, "Who was that?" He didn't answer immediately. His fingers moved slowly over the brown box and he whispered, "My grandson." Then, after a pause, he added, "I thought he had forgotten me." I was wrong. Maya didn't know what to say. She had imagined Mr. Dev's family might have forgotten him completely, but now it seemed more complicated. She wanted to ask more, but he looked so tired that she decided not to push. "You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to," she said gently. He smiled faintly. "You're kind, Maya. Kinder than most people I've known in my life." They sat in silence for a while, listening to the chirping birds and the soft rustle of leaves. But the peaceful feeling was gone. Something had changed in the air. The next morning, when Maya returned, the bench was empty. She waited for half an hour, watching the path, but he didn't come. Maybe he was unwell, she thought. The day after, he was still missing. By the third day, her worry turned into fear. She went to the tea stall near the park and asked the vendor if he had seen Mr. Dev. The man nodded slowly. "Yes, madam. He was here 2 days ago. A car came. That same young man helped him inside. Looked like they were going somewhere." Maya's heart sank. She didn't even know where he lived. The thought of Mr. Dev alone with that angry grandson made her chest tighten. She kept going to the park every morning, hoping he would return, but days passed, and there was no sign of him. One evening, as Maya was leaving work, she saw an elderly woman sitting near the bus stop, knitting quietly. Out of habit, she smiled at her. The woman smiled back and said, "You look worried, dear. Is something wrong?" Maya hesitated, then told her everything and about Mr. Dev, about the grandson, and how he suddenly disappeared. The woman listened patiently and said, "I've seen that man before. He lives in the old villa near the hill road. Maybe your friend is staying there." That night Maya couldn't sleep. The thought kept circling in her head. The angry grandson, the signed papers, and Mr. Dev's silence. Finally, she decided she couldn't wait any longer. She would find him and make sure he was all right. The next morning, she took a bus to the old villa the woman had mentioned. It was far from the city, surrounded by trees and a high metal gate. The house looked beautiful but lifeless, like it hadn't seen joy in years. She stood outside for a moment, unsure how to enter. Then she noticed a gardener near the gate and asked politely, "Does Mr. Dev live here?" The man nodded. "Yes, ma'am, but he's not well. His grandson brought him here a few days ago." Her heart pounded. "Can I meet him?" she asked. The gardener looked hesitant. "I don't think the young master allows visitors," Maya thought quickly. "Please tell him I'm delivering some food for Mr. Dev. He won't mind that." After a pause, the man nodded and let her in. As she walked through the path, she saw the house up close, large, cold, and full of silence. Inside, the smell of medicine filled the air. From one of the rooms, she heard coughing. She followed the sound and stopped at the door. There he was, Mr. Dev, sitting on a chair by the window, looking weaker than ever. His box was still beside him. "Maya?" he said softly, surprised but relieved. His voice trembled. "You shouldn't have come. I was worried," she said, walking closer. "You disappeared without telling me." Before he could reply, footsteps echoed behind her. The grandson had entered the room, his expression full of irritation. "You again?" "I told you to stay away," he snapped. Maya turned to face him. "He needs care, not shouting," she said firmly. The young man's jaw tightened. "He's my grandfather. I'll decide what's best for him." Mr. Dev looked between them, helpless. "Please, both of you, no fighting," he whispered weakly. The grandson sighed and stormed out, slamming the door. Maya sat beside Mr. Dev, her voice soft but full of concern. "What does he want you to sign?" He hesitated, his eyes full of sadness. "Things that don't belong to him," he said finally. Then, holding her hand gently, he added, "Promise me, Maya, no matter what happens, don't let him take this box." She looked at the box, confused but serious. "I promise," she said quietly. Outside, the wind howled through the empty hallways of the old villa, as if whispering secrets waiting to be uncovered. The next few days felt heavy for Maya. She couldn't stop thinking about the old villa, the angry grandson and the weak, helpless look on Mr. Dev's face. She wanted to visit again, but something told her it might not be easy. The way the grandson had looked at her that day, cold and warning, made her feel uneasy. Still, she couldn't ignore her heart. Every morning she walked by the park, hoping maybe she'd find Mr. Dev sitting there again, smiling and waiting like before. But his bench remained empty, the pigeons fluttering around as if missing their old friend too. Maya felt restless. She had grown used to seeing him every day, to hearing his soft stories and gentle laughter. Without him, her days felt incomplete. One evening, as she sat by her window, she whispered to herself, "He needs me. I know he does." She decided to go back to the villa the next morning, and no matter what. When she reached the large iron gate, she noticed something different. The gardener who had let her in before was gone, and the main door was closed. She rang the bell twice. A woman opened the door dressed like a housekeeper. "Yes?" she asked sharply. "I'm here to see Mr. Dev," Maya said politely. "I met him earlier. I just want to check on him." The woman frowned. "He's not meeting anyone." "He's unwell, please," Maya insisted. "I won't stay long. I just want to make sure he's all right." Before the woman could answer, a familiar voice came from behind her. "What are you doing here again?" It was the grandson. He looked even angrier than before. "I told you to stay away," he said coldly. "You think you can walk into our home like it's a park?" Maya met his glare with courage. "I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm here because I care about him. He's lonely and you treat him like a burden." The man's jaw tightened. "You know nothing about us. Now leave before I call the police." For a moment Maya thought about arguing, but she saw the warning in his eyes. She turned slowly and walked away, her heart pounding with anger and fear. As she reached the gate, she heard his voice behind her. "If I see you here again, you'll regret it." That night Maya couldn't sleep. She lay awake thinking about Mr. Dev. Was he being treated badly? Was he being forced to sign those papers he didn't want to? The image of him whispering, "Don't let him take the box," kept echoing in her mind. The next day she went to her office but couldn't focus on her work. During lunch, she decided to visit a nearby nursing home. Maybe someone there knew about Mr. Dev's family or his past. She asked the nurse at the desk if they had any records of a man named Dev Sharma. The nurse checked but shook her head. "No one by that name is registered here," she said. Maya thanked her and left, but she refused to give up. She started asking around. The tea stall owner, the park guard, even the old lady at the bus stop. Some said they had seen Mr. Dev around for years, always alone. No one really knew where he lived or who he was. It was as if he had appeared out of nowhere. That evening Maya sat in the park again, staring at the empty bench. She closed her eyes and prayed quietly. "Please be safe, Mr. Dev. Please let me find you again." The next morning, when she returned to the park, something unusual happened. A small boy came running up to her, holding an envelope. "Are you Maya?" he asked breathlessly. "Yes," she said, surprised. "Who gave this to you?" "An old man," the boy replied. "He said to give it to you if you come here." Then he ran off before she could ask more. Her hands trembled as she opened the envelope. Inside was a short note written in shaky handwriting. "Dear Maya, if you are reading this, it means I could not come to the park again. Don't worry, I am safe for now. But things are not right here. My grandson only visits for money, not love. He wants something from me that I can't give, because it belongs to someone else. Please don't come here again. It might not be safe for you, but if anything happens to me, you will know what to do. The truth is in the box." Dev Maya's heart raced. The truth is in the box. What did that mean? She thought about the brown leather box, the one he always kept close, the one he told her never to let the grandson take. Suddenly she felt the weight of that promise more than ever. Ignoring the warning in the letter, Maya decided she had to see him one more time. She couldn't just sit and wait. She packed some food and took a cab back to the villa. This time the main door was locked, but she noticed a small gate at the side. It led to the garden. Carefully she slipped through. The house was quiet, too quiet. She moved closer to the window and peeked inside. Mr. Dev was sitting in a chair, pale and weak, while the grandson stood before him with a pen and papers. "Just sign it," the man said angrily. "You don't even know what you're holding on to anymore." Mr. Dev shook his head slowly. "You don't understand," he whispered. "It's not yours to take. Then whose is it?" the grandson shouted. Before he could answer, Maya accidentally stepped on a dry leaf outside. The sound made the grandson turn sharply toward the window. She ducked quickly behind the bushes, heart racing. She waited until he stormed out of the room. When it was safe, she crept up to the door and knocked softly. Mr. Dev looked up weakly. "Maya, why are you here?" She rushed inside and knelt beside him. "I had to make sure you were okay," she said. "He can't treat you like this." Tears welled in his eyes. "You shouldn't have come, child." "He's dangerous when angry." Maya shook her head. "I don't care. You trusted me with your box, remember? Tell me what's going on." Mr. Dev looked toward the door nervously, then whispered, "Maya, the papers he wants me to sign would take everything I own, including something meant for you." "For me?" she repeated, shocked. "What do you mean?" Before he could explain further, Footsteps echoed in the hallway again. "Hide," Mr. Dev whispered urgently. "He's coming." Maya slipped behind the curtain as the grandson entered the room again. "I heard voices," he said suspiciously. Mr. Dev forced a weak smile. "Just talking to myself, boy. You know how old people are." The grandson frowned but didn't question further. He placed the papers back on the table and muttered, "You'll sign tomorrow whether you like it or not." After he left, Maya came out from hiding. Mr. Dev held her hand tightly and said, "If anything happens to me, take the box and leave. Promise me." Tears filled Maya's eyes. "I promise," she whispered. Outside, the wind howled through the trees, carrying with it the feeling that something dark was about to unfold. The next morning, Maya couldn't think about anything except Mr. Dev. She couldn't forget his trembling hands, the fear in his eyes and his words, "If anything happens to me, take the box and leave." Her heart felt heavy. She knew something serious was going on, something that connected her to the old man in ways she didn't yet understand. She didn't go to work that day. Instead, she sat by her window, thinking of a way to help him. By afternoon, her phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. When she answered, a shaky voice spoke from the other side. "Maya, it's me," the voice whispered. "Mr. Dev," she gasped. "Mr. Dev, are you okay? Where are you?" "I don't have much time," he said weakly. "He's gone out for a few hours. I need to give you something. Can you come, please?" "I'll be there in 15 minutes, she said without hesitation, grabbing her bag and rushing out. The sky was cloudy as she reached the old villa again. The side gate was slightly open as if waiting for her. She walked quickly through the garden and found Mr. Dev sitting in his chair, breathing heavily. The brown leather box was on his lap. "Maya," he said softly, "I knew you would come." She knelt beside him. "Tell me what's going on. Why is your grandson doing this? What's in that box?" He looked at her, his tired eyes full of sadness but also peace. "You deserve to know," he said. "You have been like family to me, and maybe—" "You truly are," Maya frowned in confusion. "What do you mean?" He placed the box gently in her hands. "Take it," he whispered. "This belongs to you," she shook her head. "No, I can't—" "Please," he interrupted, his voice trembling. "If he finds it, he'll destroy everything. But you'll understand what it means." Before she could speak again, they both heard a car door slam outside. Mr. Dev's eyes widened. "He's back," he whispered quickly. "Go, don't let him see you. And whatever happens, don't open it here." Maya hesitated, but his urgent look left her no choice. She slipped the box into her bag and quietly ran out the back gate just as the front door opened. From behind the trees, she saw the grandson entering the house, calling out angrily, "Grandpa, where are you?" Her heart raced as she hurried down the road, gripping her bag tightly. When she reached home, her hands were shaking. She locked the door and placed the box on her table. It was old but strong, with a tiny golden lock that looked handmade. She touched it gently. The leather felt worn, like it had been carried for many years. She remembered how Mr. Dev would hold it close every time she saw him, as if guarding his heart inside it. Taking a deep breath, she opened the small lock using a thin hairpin. The lid creaked softly. Inside were a few old papers, an envelope, and a faded photograph. Maya's fingers froze when she looked at the picture. It was a photo of a young woman standing beside Mr. Dev, smiling, holding a small child in her arms. The woman looked familiar. Her eyes, her smile. Maya felt her breath catch in her throat. That woman was her mother. No, she whispered in disbelief. She looked again, closer this time. There was no mistake. It was truly her mother, younger, happier, standing beside a man she had never known before. Her hands trembled as she picked up the letter. The paper was yellowed with age, and the handwriting shaky but neat. She unfolded it carefully and began to read. "My dearest child, if you are reading this, it means fate has finally brought you to me. I have waited many years for this moment, praying that life would give me one more chance to see my family again. You are my granddaughter, Maya. Your mother, Suman, was my only daughter. Many years ago, a misunderstanding separated us. I tried to find her, but by the time I did, it was too late. She had moved far away and never wanted to see me again. I carried that pain all my life. When I met you in the park, I didn't know who you were at first. But your kindness, your smile, and your eyes, they reminded me so much of her. That's when I realized You were my blood, my family. I never told you because I wanted to be sure, and I didn't want to burden you with my past. But my heart knew the truth. The box you hold carries not money or property, but memories. Your mother's photo, her birth certificate, and my last wish. If I am gone when you read this, know that I loved you deeply even before I knew your name. Your grandfather. Dev tears rolled down Maya's cheeks as she read the words again and again. Her heart felt like it would burst. She couldn't believe it. The old man she thought was just a kind stranger was her own grandfather. The man she cared for, fed and laughed with every morning was her family all along. She sat still for a long time, crying softly. Then a sudden knock on the door made her jump. She wiped her tears quickly and looked through the peephole. It was him, the grandson. Her pulse quickened. How did he find her? He banged on the door again, harder this time. "I know you have it, Maya," he shouted. "Give me the box." She stepped back, clutching it tightly. "You're not getting it," she yelled back, her voice trembling. "You don't understand what's inside," he shouted. "Oh, I understand perfectly," she said, her voice breaking. "It's not yours. It's never been." There was silence for a moment, then footsteps walking away. Maya waited until everything was quiet again. She locked all windows and sat on the floor, holding the box close to her chest. That night she couldn't sleep. Her mind was full of questions. Why did the grandson want this box so badly? What would he gain from it? And most of all, what would she do now that she knew the truth? Somewhere deep in her heart, Maya felt her life had changed forever. The truth had finally come out, but it had also opened a door to something far more dangerous. The next morning, Maya sat silently in her small room, the brown leather box resting on her lap. Her eyes were swollen from crying all night, but her mind was sharper than ever. She finally knew the truth. Mr. Dev was her grandfather. The kind, gentle man she had helped every day wasn't a stranger at all. He was family, her blood, but that truth came with danger. The grandson, the man who had shouted at her, threatened her, and treated Mr. Dev cruelly, was not her cousin, not in heart or soul. He was a man driven by greed, desperate for whatever inheritance or secret the box contained. Maya knew now that he wouldn't stop easily. She decided she couldn't just hide anymore. Mr. Dev needed her. He was old and weak, and if his grandson was capable of such cruelty, anything could happen to him. She couldn't forgive herself if she stayed silent. After taking a deep breath, Maya opened her phone and searched for a number she had saved long ago, the one for the local elder care helpline. She explained everything. The threats, the forced papers, the mistreatment. The woman on the line listened carefully and said, "We'll send someone immediately. But if you can, record whatever you can as proof." Maya nodded. "I will." That evening, she took her small camera and went back to the villa once more. The sky was dark, and a light drizzle made everything look gloomy. She waited near the gate until she saw the grandson's car leave the driveway. When she was sure he was gone, she slipped in through the garden door and quietly entered the house. Inside, the air smelled of old wood and sadness. "Mr. Dev," she whispered softly. A faint voice answered from the living room. "Maya, is that you?" She rushed forward. Mr. Dev was sitting in his chair, looking weaker than ever. His breathing was shallow, and there was a bruise on his hand. Maya's eyes filled with tears. "What did he do to you?" she asked. He gave a weak smile. "Nothing I can't handle," he whispered. "But I knew you'd come back." She held his hand gently. "I found the letter, Grandpa. I know everything now. I'm your granddaughter." For a moment his tired eyes lit up with warmth and relief. "I was right then," he said softly. "I could see your mother in you from the start." Maya nodded, tears running down her cheeks. "I'll protect you now. I promise." Before Mr. Dev could reply, they heard a car door slam outside. Maya froze. The grandson was back. "Stay here," she whispered quickly, setting her camera on the nearby shelf, pointing it toward the living room. Then she hid behind the curtain again. The front door burst open. "Grandpa!" the grandson shouted angrily. "Where is it? Did you give it to her?" Mr. Dev looked up slowly. "You'll get nothing from me," he said in a weak voice. The grandson stormed closer, grabbing his arm roughly. "You old fool! That box belongs to this family. You think some stranger girl can take it?" Mr. Dev's eyes flashed with rare strength. "She's not a stranger," he said firmly. "She's my granddaughter, my true family." Not you, Rohan. The grandson froze, his face twisting in confusion. What are you talking about? You're lying! Mr. Dev shook his head slowly. I raised your father's debt out of pity, and when he died, your mother left you with me. You've only ever cared about my money. But Maya, she cared for me without knowing who I was. Rohan's face turned red with rage. So what? You think you can just give everything to her? After all I've done. All you've done, Mr. Dev said quietly, is prove that you never deserved it. Rohan shouted, You're not signing anything? Fine. Let's see if you can stop me when I take it myself. He picked up a metal vase from the table, his anger out of control. Maya couldn't stay hidden anymore. She rushed out from behind the curtain. Stop! She shouted. Rohan turned in shock. How dare you come back? Put that down, Rohan, Maya said, her voice shaking but firm. I've already called the police. They know everything. The threats, the papers, the way you've treated him. You're bluffing, he sneered. Just then there was a loud knock on the door. Open up, police! Rohan froze. His eyes darted to the door, then to Maya. You think this is over? He hissed. Before he could move, the police entered the room, followed by 2 officers from the elder care department. Maya pointed toward him. That's him, she said. He was trying to force Mr. Dev to sign documents and take his property. One officer stepped forward. Sir, you're under investigation for elder abuse and coercion. Please come with us. Rohan tried to protest, but the evidence was already in Maya's camera. The officers found the unsigned papers on the table, proof of everything he had been doing. As they led him out, he glared at Maya with pure hatred. You'll regret this, he said under his breath, but Maya didn't care anymore. She stood tall, her hands still trembling, but her heart full of courage. After they left, the officers took Mr. Dev's statement gently. One of them said, We'll make sure you're safe, sir. When everyone was gone, Maya sat beside him again. For the first time, he looked truly peaceful. You did what I couldn't, he said softly. You brought light into this dark house. Maya smiled faintly, wiping her tears. You gave me something I never had. Family. Mr. Dev reached out, placing his weak hand over hers. Your mother would be proud of you, Maya. You have her strength. Outside, the rain had stopped, and the sun peeked through the clouds. It felt like the world had taken a deep breath after a long storm. For the first time, Maya felt at peace too. The truth had come out. Justice had begun. But deep inside, she knew there was still more to uncover. A piece of her grandfather's past that might change everything once again. The sun rose softly the next morning, spreading a warm light through the old villa. For the first time in many days, the air inside felt calm. The sound of birds returned to the garden, and a soft breeze moved the curtains gently. Maya sat beside Mr. Dev, who was resting in his chair, wrapped in a thin blanket. His face looked weak but peaceful, as if a heavy weight had finally lifted from his heart. The police had taken Rohan away the previous night. The officers promised to keep him away from Mr. Dev, and to look into all the false documents he had tried to make him sign. It was over, the lies, the greed, the fear. But the silence that followed left behind something else, the ache of time lost, and the truth that had come too late.